Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, October 6, 2021 meeting of the Lebanon Utility Service Board. Let the record reflect that the meeting was properly advertised and that all board members are present tonight. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item tonight is the approval of our minutes from the September 22nd, 2021 meeting. Everyone had a chance to review those minutes, and If so, are there any questions or comments?
I'll abstain because I wasn't here.
I would also abstain.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion made by Tim and seconded by Aaron to approve the minutes from the September 22nd meeting. Bill and Jim were not present, so they're abstaining. Any other discussion?
So you'll have to vote on this one, won't you, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman? Okay.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right. Next item we have tonight's an action item. It is the bot construction agreement. And it looks like Ryan Oettinger will be,
Let me sort of tee things up for Ryan. This is the build, operate, transfer, construction agreement. We had a long working session at our last meeting where we discussed it in depth and answered the board questions. It's a very long construction document that John Leitner was in the audience, and Jeff Jacob, myself, and Ryan spent a lot of time working on, going back and forth, making sure it's agreeable to us in terms of the details. And hopefully we answered most of the questions last time, but Ryan and team's available to answer any questions, and Jeff Jacob will read the resolution at the appropriate time and turn it over to Ryan.
I just have a preliminary question. Has Bowen seen the document?
Very much so,
And so it's been communicated and coordinated with them?
frequently.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
vigorously. Yes, they have.
Thank you.
Yeah, like Ed said, this is kind of the next phase or next step in the process. You know, we started with all the way back when this first started with the design phase. And this is the phase where we actually, the actual work, you know, on the ground work gets started. If you'll remember, last meeting we talked about Bowen's initial price and that we were able to get that price down a little bit. And that price is $5,991,450. That is the GMAX price, so that's the ceiling. We're hoping to have that come down. We had a project just recently that had a GMAX price on it that we're getting ready to get some money back on, so they didn't use everything, and we're able to had some cost savings in there. So we're hoping but that would be the max cost. And this is construction agreement for the construction contract. Is that right, Jeff?
Ryan, I have a question, please.
Yes, sir.
I assume the incentive for the BOT contractor to control cost is that their profit will remain the same if they control the cost. Is that right?
Yeah, and John can explain that a little bit more.
So they have two main incentives. Number one is, like you said, their margin. So if right now they're at 8%, if the price comes down, they could be at 10%. That looks good in their books. So that is a good point on that. The other one is they probably want to be invited back. So we're going to have a later agenda item on a guaranteed savings project that people want to be a provider on. I mean, that it's future work is also a very big incentive for these providers as you're looking at the open book pricing and trying to control costs. So.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Brian.
I think, Aaron, the positive for us is we get a guaranteed price. We don't have a project where we will go with the low bidder, but we have a 30% change in cost because we just went with the low bidder. So I think we know the top end, we may get some back, we may not, but we know the top end and we're not going to go beyond that.
And the efficiency also, if we had a minimum or the lowest bid, every time there's a change order, it needs to, we have to come in and change things, or it could delay the project if it's a large enough change order. So this is, Bowen goes out and does their due diligence on pricing to get the low prices and does a lot of the legwork that we would normally do, so it benefits the utilities. And then the open book pricing, where every dollar they spend is open and we can see what they're paying for PVC, what compared to the market, and make sure that we're getting the best deal possible. So it's a good situation for
So that
utilities.
we will not see any change orders.
Well, Within this,
Hopefully we see a change order at the end to reduce the guaranteed maximum price. So
Okay.
there's almost always one change order, at least at the very end. But how it is set up is there will not be change orders unless they are owner-driven. So if you guys wanted to-
what driven?
Owner-driven. So if you guys wanted to add something to the scope, we could do a change order for that, but Bowen is not gonna come, the scope of work is what it is. We have a
So
project.
we don't anticipate changing the scope of the project?
No, sir. We do have a project contingency factored into that price, if you look at the breakdown, for unforeseen conditions. So
Okay.
if something pops up, it will come out of that contingency. If there's not, if Bowen has factored in risk on this. So if we go over, we go over. And we have seen that in the past on a guaranteed savings project for the Prairie Heights Lift Station project.
Right.
Bowen ate a significant amount of money because of different delays and different things that happened during the construction. There was no change order, you still paid that same guaranteed maximum price. So we have a very good example of this really working well for the utilities and saving a lot of money.
Good.
another example is on the Syracuse Drive project. It managed to stay under, but we added, if you'll remember, we added connecting Garfield to the Park Place. We added that new water line that was just a small amount of feet, but it wasn't part of the original scope. So we did bring that, since it was outside the scope, to the board, but it still managed to stay under the budget. But since it was an outside the scope change of what the original document was, we would always bring that to the board, or if the board said, if we decided that we wanted to add something that would benefit us long-term outside the scope, we would. But that would be a board-generated decision.
Well, it's such a large project and a large amount of money, I just don't want to see it get out of control.
Right, so with this scope and this price, that is where we are on the maximum, but we hope to come in lower than that. But there are contingencies built in to where
Understand.
if they've got to de-water, let's say, or something to that effect that they weren't expecting, that we can use the contingency for that.
I think it's fair to say, and John, you correct me, or Ryan, if I'm wrong, we would not see absent an unforeseen circumstance or the price, end of price change, we wouldn't see a during construction change order that is contractor-driven like we've seen on other projects. And that's sort of the benefit of, one of the primary benefits of these
understand,
agreements. So.
Yeah, we did, the Sugar Creek Phase 2 was also similar to that, where we came in under, and we did a change order to approve the refund on that. And then it looks as though we don't have the exact numbers yet, but it looks as though Syracuse Drive is going to be similar to where we're going to actually do an approval for a refund from some of the money, because they did not use all the contingencies, and they were able to save some money on concrete here and there. So, and trucking, we took care of all the trucking ourselves and stockpiled the dirt at the wastewater treatment plant instead of having them truck it out, and so we saved quite a bit of money on that. So if anybody else has any questions for me on that end, or John, we can answer that. If not, then I'll turn it over to council to go ahead and go through the resolution.
Thank you. Board, the Resolution 2021-08 before you is, just to set this up a little bit, it's designed sort of to ratify where we are in the process, and then to approve this construction agreement. By way of explanation, we do not anticipate executing this agreement, though Bowen has approved all the changes. We do not anticipate executing this agreement until the funding has occurred. So once SRF closes, the intent of the resolution is that you would then give Ed the authority through this resolution to sign the agreement. I do note that we will likely have one change to the agreement that I would not say is substantial, but the Davis-Bacon wage scale will likely be updated between now and that time. It's going to be what it is, and so if the board doesn't have any objection to that, am I correct in that, John? So we would substitute the most recent data at the time of execution. So that having been said, I'm happy to answer any questions or happy to dive into the resolution.
Sounds like it's all yours.
All right. This is Resolution 2021-08, resolution approving build, operate, transfer, construction agreement. Whereas the City of Lebanon, Indiana owns and operates by and through the Lebanon Utility Service Board, a municipally owned utility known as Lebanon Utilities, for the purpose of providing safe, reliable, and efficient water service in and around the city. Whereas the board finds it is in the best interest of the ratepayers, the utility, and the city to expand, improve, and maintain the infrastructure of the water system. Whereas the board authorized the issuance of a request for proposals for the construction and operation of a water storage tank, booster station, and water main pursuant to Indiana law, including Indiana Code 5233. Whereas, after a thorough review of the submitted proposals and recommendations from the review of the committee and staff, the board approved Bowen Engineering Corporation's response to the RFP. Whereas the board approved and hereby ratifies the build, operate, transfer agreement dated July 7th, 2021 with Bowen for the design and potential construction of the project. Whereas on September 22nd, 2021, the board reviewed Bowen's guaranteed maximum price proposal dated September 17, 2021, and authorized the negotiation of a build, operate, transfer, construction agreement with Bowen. Whereas the board anticipates funding the project through the state revolving fund program, which has yet to receive final authorization from the Indiana Finance Authority. And whereas the board has received and reviewed the BOT construction agreement with Bowen. Now therefore be it resolved by the Lebanon Utility Service Board that the BOT construction agreement is approved and adopted by the board to become effective upon its execution by the utility general manager, and that the board authorizes the utility general manager to execute the BOT construction agreement contingent upon Indiana Finance Authority approval of the project financing through the state revolving fund loan program.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Ryan. Any other questions on this BOT construction agreement resolution that Jeff read? Not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-08, approving build, operate, transfer, construction agreement.
Second.
Motion made by Jim, seconded by Bill to approve Resolution 2021-08, approving the build, operate, transfer, construction agreement. Are there any other questions or discussion?
I have a question about the Indiana Finance Authority. When do we anticipate some kind of an answer on that?
I believe that the closing has been pushed from October until November to accommodate council approval of the SRF loan and the state's approval. Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I believe that we have everything in order. You just finalized the last piece of land acquisition, and everything else relative to SRF has been pretty smooth sailing, knock on wood. So I think that everything is in order and pre-approved, if you will. Is that correct, John?
I would say yes, other than we are going to ask for approval for the last piece of land acquisition at this meeting.
Yes, I got ahead of myself.
Last piece, okay.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Jeff. So I have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, everyone. Next action item on the agenda is the Abner Longley easement. Ryan is still perched to...
Still here, aren't you? You can't get rid of, like a bad penny, you can't get rid of it.
I'm not sure that's a good word.
This request is to approve the purchase of the water main easement and right-of-way from the Church of Christ located at 1204 Indianapolis Avenue. This purchase will allow for the water main from the Abner Longley storage facility to be connected to the 16-inch water main that runs along Indianapolis Avenue. The amount of this purchase is $21,900, and it is part of the project. We The reason why we're just now to this step is we wanted to evaluate, once we got the design finished, which direction we were going to go, whether it was to Noble Street, whether it was connect on Hendricks Drive, or connect to Indianapolis Avenue. And with the new construction of that 16-inch main trunk line all the way from the 4-H Fairgrounds down Indianapolis Avenue, we decided that was the best route. And after that decision was made is when we started talking to the church and entered with the agreed-upon price. And like I said, this was factored in at the very beginning for an easement cost for if we needed to buy an easement or right-of-way to get to what connection point we needed.
And this will complete all the right-of-way that we need, correct?
Correct.
All right, pretty straightforward there. Thank you, Ryan. Any questions for Ryan on this easement? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the purchase of the utility easement right-of-way for the Church of Christ as part of the Abner Longley Water Storage Facility for the amount of $21,900.
Second.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Tim to approve the purchase of the easement and right-of-way from the Church of Christ as part of the Abner Longley Water Storage Facility in the amount of $21,900. Are there any additional questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Ryan, and it looks like we're on to the Reese Park authorized to advertise action item.
Yes, this is a request for the board to authorize Lebanon Utilities to advertise a request for proposals for the guaranteed savings contract for Reese Park Lift Station. This will allow us to gather a scoring committee to review the potential providers and select a provider. Selecting a provider will then allow us to work with that provider to evaluate phase 2 on this project, and also begin working on funding for phase 2, and also obviously the work on phase 1. We will advertise the request for proposals in both the Lebanon Reporter and Indianapolis Star, according to how they're supposed to be advertised, two different periods. We'll advertise both locally and in Indianapolis. So my request would be that the board authorize us to send out an RFP for the guaranteed savings contract for Reese Park Phase 1.
Okay, Ryan, thank you. Any questions for Ryan on this item?
How will this RFP for Phase 1 tie in with Phase 2 possibly being constructed at the same time?
It tied directly with not only the design, but potential funding. So they'll have to design Phase 2 or have a good grasp of that design, because the depth for Phase 1 on a gravity lift station, the depth is sized according to, or the size of the clear well is decided on, based on the gravity flow and the depth of the flow. So you can't get Phase 1 finalized until you have a design for Phase 2. And then also, when we do that, we'll be able to look at the funding options and see if this is a project that the contractor is able to do all at once, if we're able to finance it all at once, or if we want to split that up. That'd be the Lebanon Utilities' decision on what direction we go with the phases, running them at the same time, or a Phase 1 then a Phase 2.
And Aaron, it would be my recommendation, and I believe the intention would be, I think this may directly answer your question, is that it would be a bid alternate, so the board would have the option on how to approve that. John, you may disagree with that in terms of how you're setting it up.
No, I wouldn't say that. With going in for guaranteed savings, we're not really getting a bid per se. We'll get price proposals. We're basically signing up a provider at no financial obligation to you guys to help us finish off the scope of the design of the project, make sure, I can put things on paper, make sure that they agree that that's the best way it can be constructed in the field. And then use that to also look at phase two and see what that potential cost might be to help us determine funding and whether we can package everything together or not. So it's really kind of getting the full project team together to try to help you guys make some of these decisions. And we want to do that really as early as possible.
So at the end of we select an RFP provider. At the end of what the RFP provider does, will we have full engineering for both phase one and phase two?
I'm not going to say we'll have 100% plans, but we will have we'll be very far along in both to where they will be able to give us a price proposal for both sections.
Oh, they
Or
will?
maybe both of
Okay.
them together.
So
Typically,
so it won't be a formal alternate process, but it will serve that purpose?
correct, it'll be that same type of thing. So typically on a guaranteed savings project, we might only be at 60% plans before, and they can give us a price proposal based off of that, factoring in some of the risks or the things that they know, and then we can take that information and finish it off the plans, so. Hope to be a lot further along than that on phase one, but phase two might only be 60%, knowing that we're, still taking into account some of their input and obviously Lebanon Utilities input.
But we'd feel confident in phase one, whether we chose to do phase two, or excuse me, for phase two design, if it's 60%, we'd feel confident whether we do it in 2022 or 2027, that's a solid design that you would then build from whatever piece you're at that point in time.
Correct. I mean, we're trying to set a lift station depth, as Ryan was saying, and what we're talking about is, do we want to be 20 feet deep or do we want to be 25 feet deep? And we should have enough, even if we have 3 routes for them to consider, and we're not quite there, we'll set it at 25 feet deep and say that being the deepest we can is the better option, so we can do any of these 3 alternatives. Or we might already at that time have said, no, this is the best option, we only need to be 20 feet deep. But it kind of gives us a lot of flexibility, and the market conditions we have right now that, we just dealt with looking at Admiral Army Tank, this is going to help. We can Butler Fairmont Cipher can only do so well estimating right now with where prices are. This gets us a provider that can actually go out and tell us what these things are going to cost. It's very helpful to get them on board early.
I've got a question. Are we going to have a problem getting a proposal, an RFP for a guaranteed savings contract on something like this?
No, I don't.
You don't think so?
What do you mean by, so specifically for the guaranteed savings, what you're really looking for is kind of an energy component. What we are trying to get rid of are 7 recurring SSOs. So you have the energy that it takes for Ryan to send guys out there and clean this up anytime we have a heavy rain.
Okay.
So that should offset and provide savings, plus future capital cost avoidance will easily make up what the statute's asking for.
Good.
I can tell you, we've already begun kind of putting feelers out to providers. There's a lot of interest from some very good qualified providers on the list.
That's good news.
So I feel it's best to, get somebody on our team as soon as we possibly can.
Well, I feel that way as well.
Yeah, I know it's a high priority project for everybody.
All right, thanks, John and Ryan. Anything else for these guys on the Reese Park authorized to advertise?
I'm ready to make a motion if the board's ready.
All right.
I make a motion to authorize Lebanon Utilities to advertise a request for proposals, RFP, for the Guaranteed Savings Contract, GSC, for the Reese Park Lift Station Phase 1.
I second that motion.
Motion made by Aaron, seconded by Jim, to authorize the utilities to advertise a request for proposals for the Guaranteed Savings Contract for the Reese Park Lift Station Phase 1. Anyone have further questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Ryan. And on to item 7, which is the Chicago Street water treatment plant filters, also an action item.
We're over halfway there, so we're we're chugging along with all my items on the agenda. This request is for the Chicago Street Water Plant, which is on Chicago Street. It is our smaller water plant, and it has outdoor water filters that are exposed to the environment. We typically do the overpaint yearly ourselves, but there's some rust spots that are starting to pit out a little bit, and if they're left on their own, it could cause some integrity issues with the filter. So this request would be for the company to come in and prep, sandblast everything off the outside of the filters, and then coat the pressure filters for the plant. We did receive two quotes on this, with the lowest being Conco Spray Solutions in the amount of $19,440. We do have a budgeted line item for facility rehab and other projects that this falls under, and there was only, as of the end of the August financials, there was only $4,000 of the budget, $150 that had been used. So this would be $19,000 out of that capital project. We try to use that a little bit later in the year, just in case emergencies pop up when it's 90 degrees, and to make sure we do have that funding. But as things start to settle down a little bit more for us toward the end of the year, we're able to do some projects that aren't emergencies but still are high on our priority list. So that's kind of where this one fell into place. I can answer any questions about this that the board might have.
Why only two quotes?
The specific style of paint, so this paint can be put on, these filters sweat in humid situations. Normal painters cannot paint that because it won't adhere. So in order for us to do these while operational, without having to take the plant down for extended period of time, these are kind of industry leaders in that field, and were recommended through other water treatment plants that we reached out to. And this will allow everything to be done, including we have entry holes where you can get down there, take samples, and actually if a contractor had to get down there or someone had to get down there, you can actually enter the filter through these. They will not have to be removed, so therefore the tank doesn't come offline, the filter doesn't come offline. We don't have to get bacteria samples. If we take the filter offline, we have to get bacteria samples. It's a minimum 60 to 70 hour process. So that entire water plant would be down for that amount of time. So this ensures no downtime whatsoever, and will all be done while the filters are live.
So I guess the short answer was this is a specialty contractor situation?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like I said, with the moisture involved and with this paint, and this is the type of paint where it's almost an epoxy where once you mix it, you only have about a 24-hour window to use it, or you can't use it anymore because of, I don't know the chemistry behind it, but because of what happens when you expose it to the oxygen and it's mixed and not applied. So it's a very industry specific. And like I said, we can maintain them, but we can't redo them.
Anything else for Ryan on the
No.
plant filters? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we move to approve the quote for Conoco Spray Solutions for the prep, blast, and spraying of the water treatment plant filters at the Chicago Street Water Plant in the amount not to exceed $19,440.
Second. Motion made by Bill, seconded by Tim, to approve the quote from Conco Spray Solutions for the prep, blast, and spraying of the water treatment plant filters at the Chicago Street Water Plant in the amount not to exceed $19,440. Anyone have any additional questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, thank you, Ryan. Moving along to the Bfns Supplemental Agreement, action item.
My last item, I promise, I'll get out of your hair after this one. This is a request to approve a supplemental agreement for Bfns that allowed Bfns to do a boundary survey for the entire 2-acre property for Abner Longley storage tank. This was included in the final numbers that we presented to the board. But what I wanted to explain was why the need for this supplemental agreement. We did surveys, but and John can explain a little bit more what was done, but we held off on doing the needed surveys until we were told to go in that direction. So if it wasn't needed, we didn't want to spend money on it. We wanted to wait and make sure that that had to be part of the process before. So that's why it wasn't done earlier and was done later, because until we knew 100% that we needed to do this for the project, we didn't want to do it and spend the, $15,000 here or, a different amount when it wasn't needed or necessary to try to keep costs down. John, if you want to kind of explain what's included in this.
Yeah, I guess the boundary survey is a specialized survey that was needed to do the land transfer with the city. So early on, when we did the original design contract, we weren't sure if that's exactly where we were going to put the tank, if we were going to put it at the property we had at 501 Noble Street. We put it there, we wouldn't have needed a boundary survey. This was a piece needed in order to facilitate the land transfer that we were hoping we wouldn't need and ended up needing to facilitate, so.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. Questions for Ryan or John on this supplemental agreement?
Did the city do the survey?
I do not believe so, no. Was that
John, did they?
Yeah, BFS prepared all those documents on behalf of Lebanon Utilities.
Okay. All right.
No, they did not. All right, if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the supplemental agreement number 1 in the amount of $15,000, increasing the agreement from $555,300 to $570,000, $300,000. Jiminy Christmas. 570300.
I second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Bill, to approve the supplemental agreement number 1 in the amount of $15,000. Any additional questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Ryan, appreciate your work.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, cost arm and leg, get that torque down.
All right, next item tonight is the approval of our claims, payroll, and transfers. Everyone had a chance to review, and if so, any questions or discussion? Not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the claims payroll transfers dated October 6, 2021 in the amount of $471,711.97 for claims and payroll and $163,557 for transfers.
Second.
Motion made by Jim, seconded by Bill to approve the claims, payrolls, and transfers dated October 6, 2021. Anything additional on this item? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, anyone have anything else, other business for the board or from the board tonight? Any public comment here or that has come in to us, Ed?
No, I've not received any other public comment.
Okay, with that, it looks like our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 20th at 5 p.m. And if there is no additional business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Jim to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, everyone.